I was just walking, minding my own business. I was walking out of my house, walking down to my car.
Just hanging around with my friends.
They came, they grabbed us, they put us against the wall. They had cameras even this time, I don't know why. I don't know, something serious must have happened. They weren't clear about what happened. They just said to us, something has happened, you fit the description. What's your name, where you from, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da. Just start firing away with their questions.
What we was doing, what have we been up to, what we was going to do. Just simple questions like that.
They spoke to me in a correct manner. They spoke to me as an adult, but that wasn't really the point, you know, because like I haven't done nothing and you know, you're just stopping and searching me. But they did speak to me in a good tone.
Stopping and searching is really good. I think it's good that the police can pull you over and stuff, you know, or like just go up to a group of kids or a gang, or even just a single person asking to, like, because if they have got something and I'm walking down the street and if they've just stopped them, then
it is for your safety, and I think that if it's done for our safety, I think then that is correct.
Somebody might have a knife and then the police have just stopped them and you walk round the corner, you could have been a victim.
Well, I think that the problem is that one person's reasonable grounds may be not the same for somebody else.
Officers spend 18, 20 weeks at training school, then further 2 years honing their skills on stop and search. Stopping and speaking and searching somebody is notoriously difficult, and you've got to have your grounds. I know there's a perception that people go on fishing expeditions, but in reality you've got to write all your grounds down. Those grounds are examined by a supervising officer. And if those grounds don't exist, you can be disciplined, you can be spoken to, you can give further training.
We've just been flagged down by a member of the public who's come across an elderly lady who's been grabbed from behind by a young black teenager. He dragged her into some bushes and stole her handbag, and he's run off. We've searched the area onto the estate to see if we can find him. We did stop and speak to two young youths on the estate, but it turned out that they weren't the people that we were after. We're still searching the estate to see if we can find the suspects at this stage.
Everybody expects to be able to go about their day-to-day business without interference by other people or by police officers, and any use of stop and search powers against individuals is going to be unpleasant, interfere with you going on with what you want to do, going to make you late, going to involve an intrusion of your privacy. Our particular concern is that over the last 15 years, Parliament has seen fit to start granting powers that do not depend on reasonable suspicion directed against individuals. These are powers under Section 60 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act and Section 44 of the Terrorism Act 2000. Using those powers, police officers are allowed to stop and search people without having any suspicion directed against those individuals. Those powers are excessive, they're disproportionate, and in our view should be done away with.
There's a call from the community in response to the growing trend of knives and guns on the streets of London, not only by adults but by young people as well. They want to have the right to actually move around London freely without fear from people who have got knives and guns. And that's why we have the powers to stop and search, a response from the community and through legislation.
One of the things that is a feature, though, is that very little intelligence is gained from stops and searches, and virtually no intelligence is gained from either Section 44 anti-terrorism stops or Section 60 stops.
As a senior police officer, I'm privy to some quite sensitive intelligence from both from within the community and from MI5, MI6. And Section 44, when implemented, isn't just at the whim of a senior police officer. It goes all the way up to the highest echelons of government, and a lot of work is done. And difficult questions are asked: do you really need that power? And so we've done all the background work. We've produced the intelligence picture for London, and because there's a genuine threat, then Section 44 is granted. Terrorism is a continuing threat. Quite clearly in London it's a continuing threat. We won the 2012 Olympics, and the day after we won it, we were blown up.
I think the latest statistics produced by the Ministry of Justice show that only just over 10% of reasonable suspicion stop and searches result in an arrest. The statistics don't say what percentage of those then result in a conviction, and I think that is perhaps rather telling that statistic has been omitted.
I mean, the most obvious way of measuring the success of stop and search is how many people have been arrested. But that's the tip of the iceberg, because it's not just about arrests. It's about number of people that are cautioned, number of juveniles that we've taken home and said to their parents, look, you know, this is what we've caught your son doing, caught what your daughter's doing, you might want to intervene. And it's the deterrent factor. It's about disrupting criminal activity, so that a criminal goes out on the street, he or she thinks, well, the cops might be around, I might get turned over, and they might find the drugs in my pocket, the knife in my pocket, the firearm in my pocket.
Statistics are a strange creature. Officers will occasionally stop a vehicle, and they may very find within the vehicle a knife, and that there may be 4 people actually in the car, or some drug-related paraphernalia. And what officers will do, they'll have to search each one of them, and that will distort the figures. So whereas you'll find that one person actually has the drugs on them, the 3 others do not. But unfortunately, we have to go through the process whereby we stop and search all 4 of them, because we have the reasonable grounds by finding the paraphernalia in the car.
It appears that these powers are used disproportionately, certainly against certain ethnic minority groups.
There's 2 views here. The first one is that young people generally feel that the police are going out of their way to stop and search young people, and in particular black young people, black young males. But then the second thing is there's people within the black community, like black young males and females, who feel that the provision of stop and search is actually a necessity in today's society. They feel like it's there to keep them safe. They feel safe when young police officers are stopping and searching young people, you know, because at the end of the day it's preventing crime and it's deterring people from committing crime.
Another issue that community monitoring groups raise is the ratio of black and white people being stopped to the census, which is 7 years out of date. But we need to take into account that in the census there's elderly people and children, and they're not going to be searched. It's obviously the people on the street going to stop, which is the younger people. So we need to take into do the proportionality on people beyond the street population.
And if we go around statistics, then we're saying then perhaps X% of people that we stop and search should be 70-year-old men, X% should be 10-year-old boys. I think what we're looking at is who we stop and search and why we stop and search. And that's about street population as opposed to who lives in our cities, who actually goes out on the streets.
When police officers are engaged in activity, they only stop people in public places. And that when we actually focus our attention in hotspot areas of high crime, then you can see that the proportionality of people in that area differs from residential population.
As a member of a community monitoring group, what we have to do is to question when there appears to be disproportionality, because it may actually be based on discrimination, and that is not allowed. So what the community monitoring groups do is we look at the figures, we look at where people are stopped, why they're stopped, look at their ethnicity, age and so on, to see if there's any hint of discrimination. And if there is, then we would take that up through to the borough commander. If there isn't, then the disproportionality is as it is, because the people being stopped are being stopped with reasonable grounds and suspicion and so on.
Sometimes charges result from their resistance to that process or anger that overspills within that context. So it's not just about whether stop and search uncovers crimes that it wouldn't uncover. Sometimes it can be at risk of inflaming anger or tension, particularly for young people who feel unreasonably targeted.
Our stop and search powers are given by Acts of Parliament, and that with an Act of Parliament comes the codes of practice, and that's our interpretation of how we conduct. It gives us guidance around it. So we cannot stop any person purely and simply on appearance. Every police officer has a supervisory process internally. Externally, we also have monitoring processes whereby you can make a complaint if you feel that any of those codes of practice have been breached.
It's young people who are most likely to be victims of crime on the streets. They're the young people who are most exposed to some of the threats and the bullying that a minority of young people do create. So most young people have an interest in seeing the streets effectively policed.
A lot of people try to, they try and avoid that issue, try and dance around it and beat around the bush, but it's a reality. And yeah, a lot of young black males are caught up in whatever, but again, there's a lot of young black males who are doing positive things, who are trying to, better the community, because it's our community at the end of the day, and without that understanding with the police, you know what I mean, we're going to go nowhere. We need the police as well as they need us.
Certainly I don't, as a law-abiding citizen, I don't think so it's any infringe to my human rights, you know. And if I'm a law-abiding citizen, I will cooperate with the police, and why not? You know, it doesn't